We're really happy to welcome back to Backyard Report Ron Green Jr., senior writer for the Global Golf Post. Ron, where are you at today? It looks like you're at home today. How's that happen?
I'm at home in sunny 95-degree Charlotte right now, where I'm debating Friday afternoon golf, high of about 97. I don't know. I don't know. I have a trip to Bandon Dunes awaiting me in about 2 days. So, I might just wait it out for the 65-degree weather out there.
Gonna say it'll be a little bit cooler out there, probably a little breezy too, probably coming off the ocean a little
Yeah.
bit. Hey, Ron, to get right down to it, you wrote an article about a memo that Jay Monahan wrote to the players. And one of the topics was this model local rule with the USGA and the RNA trying to limit the golf ball. The PGA Tour kind of says thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah. It would be, if it weren't already enough with the whole PGA Tour Live thing, that whole crater we have to work around, the golf ball thing is still out there. Now, the comment period for the RNA and the USGA runs through August 14th, I guess. I think that's sort of being polite. Tell us what you think. We've sort of already made up our mind, but you go ahead and tell us what you think. And we'll really take good care to listen to your opinion. Well, I think the PGA Tour, at the behest of a lot of players, has decided they don't want to support this basically rolled back version of the ball for the top players in the game. I found it interesting in the wording. I'm not totally surprised. I got the sense that a lot of players didn't like it. Now, Tiger and Rory McIlroy and Jack Nicklaus have all spoken out in favor of it, thinking it's a good thing. But I think the larger majority doesn't want to tweak, doesn't want to have to deal with this. They like what they have and want to keep it that way. Obviously, equipment companies feel the same way. So I think that's why the tours said, appreciate what you've done, but we're not going to go along with this. But in the wording there, Monahan said something to the effect of, we're committed to working with the organizations to find a solution, which, implies they understand there's a problem there. And they would not adopt the model local rule as proposed, which suggests, let's come back to us with something else. I think what this says is there's more work to be done. Now, whether the USGA and the RNA just unilaterally say, all right, whatever, January 1st, 2026, this rule goes into effect. If you want to play your own ball in the PGA Tour, that's fine. But if you're playing the Open Championship in the US Open, maybe the Masters, you're going to have to get this scale down ball. I don't know. I mean, it's sort of a paradox, and it's one of those situations where both sides can be right. I mean, I understand why tour players want to keep what they have and don't want to mess with it. And, they sell sizzle. Watching Cam Young hit it 345 down the middle. I mean, that's Mission Impossible stunt type stuff to most of us.
Making birdie. They're selling a product. USGA
Yeah.
and the RNA, they don't have to worry about that. They can just put down rules, say, here's what's going to be, and no consequence, basically. But the PGA Tour is selling a product, and that product is long drives and birdies.
Yeah. But if you're the RNA and you look at the old course, and they already have 2 or 3 tees that are not actually on the property, and we're trying to extend the golf course, other places, Marion and all, any number of great courses that are basically being outdated because they don't have enough room, and most clubs don't have enough money, if they had the room, to continue to accommodate the best players. Now, most of us, we're buying, don't touch anything, and they're not touching anything. We're going to buy everything we can. I mean, you thought it was good what you bought last year. Wait till you get what we get coming out this year. It's going to be even better. And
new and improved, hit it 15 yards longer.
Yeah, nobody's ever promised you're going to hit it shorter. And they promise I'll hit it straighter. I might hit it as long now as I ever did, even though I'm adding some years to it. But I still hit it as crooked as I ever did, I think. But it's a tough situation. I think I gotta believe there's some sort of consideration of working, finding a solution to it. I don't know if maybe it's something instead of the golf ball. A lot of players talk about shrinking the heads of the driver. That makes the better players better. If you shrink the head of the driver and the sweet spot gets a little smaller, you can't just, it's not as easy to just go up there and rear back and know that if you miss it a little bit, it's still going to go out there. You know, equipment companies, I'm sure, would have a reason they don't want to do that too. But I mean, has distance distorted the game? I think it absolutely has. I mean, I go back to Aaron Hills and watching Justin Thomas on that Saturday when he shot 63, hit three wood to a 660-yard par five. I don't, I don't think that's what Bobby Jones imagined the game was going to be. And everything evolves. I mean, I mean, I'm watching NFL football come into life, and I grew up in an era where, the running back was the greatest thing you could have. You had to have the great running back. Now they're disposable. We don't even need those guys. So things change and evolve. I just think that it's sort of shifted a little too heavily toward the power and lost a little bit of the art in the equation. I don't think it's irreparable, but I think, sort of like all the signs of climate change, hey, you better do something now. You can see where this is going. And I think that's what Mike Wan and Martin Slumbers have talked about.
The exact quote that you referred to is that Monahan in the memo wrote, although there has been some level of support for limiting future increases, there is widespread and significant belief that the proposed modified local rule is not warranted and is not in the best interest of the game. Following a decision on the topic at a recent PAC meeting, the PAC Players Advisory Council meeting, we have notified the USGA and the R&A that while the PGA Tour is committed to collaborating with all industry partners to arrive at a solution that will best serve our players, our fans, and the game all levels, we're not able to support the modified local rule as proposed. So that's the first time that in my memory, that one of the four major or five major golf organizations in the world has really taken a stance against the USGA or the R&A and a rule that was proposed.
Yeah, I think you generally figured they all sort of sit down and, all right, the USGA and R&A will do the dirty work and we'll do this. And then everybody will grudgingly or happily agree. But the PGA Tour, they went along with the banning the anchored putter and all that, but this one made it just, to them, obviously seems like a bridge too far. I think they don't see the necessity for it, but they're looking at it through a different prism. I mean, I think they care very much about the future of the game, because the better the game is, the better their product becomes and what they can offer. I mean, but I hope we don't get to the point where 2026 suddenly, they play the whole West Coast swing, the Florida swing, and suddenly they come roaring into Augusta, and then, hold on, boys, there's a bucket of balls over there. You got to play these. Put your marks on them, but they're not going to go quite as far. And then the same at the U.S. Open. That's where it sounds like it might go right now. But I'm hopeful they find a way around it. I'm not as opposed to bifurcation. A lot of people say this bifurcates the game. Well, yeah, but I would argue that the game is bifurcated.
It's completely different anyhow. Yeah.
Right. I mean, we all play different tees, don't we? That's as bifurcated as it can be, I would think. You're not playing the same golf course that Rory's playing, or so there's lots of ways there. I understand. We'd like to think we have the same equipment those guys have, but just like I would like to thought if I bought a Chevrolet, it might go like the one Jeff Gordon used to drive in all those races. But I got a feeling they were a little different.
Let's leave the modified local rule for a minute. Jay took some time away. I don't know if we've just seen his shrink or if he was really sick or something, or somebody said, hey, just get out of the limelight and go out to Montana and fish for a while or something. But anyhow, this memo, kind of maybe is his effort to stay in touch with the players a little bit more, because he caught so much grief when he went off and negotiated this deal with the LIV and the PIF on this merger thing. A lot of grumbling going on that, hey, I didn't know anything about this. The players, say, what's going on here? So is this an effort maybe from his part to maybe stay in touch with the tours a little bit better?
It certainly looked and read that way to me. I mean, they were coming out of a policy board meeting and then a PAC meeting, and they had done a lot of business, a lot of work had gotten done. So he, I guess they had the PAC meeting on Wednesday, and he just sends out this memo detailing where they are with various things. I mean, Jason Gore got a nice promotion, bigger role. I mean, talking about the distance proposal, talking about other things. And so, yes, it looked very much like a step, like, okay, you want more information, here it is. Now, it got out to the media immediately. It didn't get sent out to the media specifically, but they know well enough when they start sending those things out, they're not going to stay locked up in everybody's email box for long. But I think I understand why Monahan had to be so secretive in what they did for the agreement, the initial agreement, because like everybody else, I mean, I just was floored by the news when it came out. I wonder in retrospect, could they have, once they decided to sit down and just have a discussion, call it a coffee or whatever, just said, hey, just so you know, we're at least going to entertain a conversation just to see. It may solidify both of us in our, we'll both go to our corners and build bigger walls, or maybe we'll find a way forward. They didn't even feel comfortable doing that. They thought it was so tenuous. So, but I think if they could have at least just said, hey, look, we're going to just, sit down and meet face to face and see if there's any room here. Sure, they'd still get the pushback. Well, all the things you've said, about Saudi Arabia, about the PIF, about all that. I mean, you can't outrun those. And Jay has acknowledged that. But you also couldn't ignore the fact that their financial statements going forward were going to look, the funds were going down, not up. And when you're trying to compete against somebody with the money,
when you got that $700 million check balance, you don't like to see that go below 650 million. It starts to worry you.
They could have actually spent more money, which was, I think, one of the concerns is, what if they decide, okay, we've got a foothold here, let's go even bigger. Now, I think where they miscalculated badly was thinking anybody wanted the product they're selling. I just don't think it's a very good product. And I think, then of course, as we all can imagine, the threat of lawsuits and discovery and depositions and all that stuff, that can solve a lot of problems. I don't want my secret out there, and I know you don't want your secrets out there. How about we sit down and do that? And I think, but I mean, the tour's getting ready to announce their new schedule in another week or so, and they're talking about record-breaking purses. Well, the purses they've had this year did a lot for the game, but I mean, remember, somebody's got to find that money, and I think finding it has gotten harder and harder, or at least it's drained some of what you'd like to think is your safety net.
So all this stuff that's gone on, there were some rumblings like maybe a coup to get rid of Jay Monahan. Patrick Cantlay had made some comments about maybe Monahan's not the right guy for the job. Have those kind of died down? Is Monahan's status, is his job safe for the time being?
Yeah, I think for the time being, I think it sort of has to play out right now. I used an analogy that when this whole thing took off, I mean, suddenly you've got this agreement, this framework agreement, like you got the plane in the air. Well, somebody's got to fly it, and Jay may be the only guy who really can put this whole thing together and get it back where they need it to be. Now, with this secondary company, I don't know what you call it secondary, but this new code that they've started,
the umbrella deal. Yeah.
He's going to be the CEO. Maybe there's a whole scenario laid out already that he will slide over there, run that operation with Yasser Ramayan as the chairman there. And then someone else steps into the role of commissioner of sort of the game itself, the sport itself. And Jay can then go over there and work the business side of this. I don't know. That's just been thrown out there. There's Jason Gore's a guy, when people start talking about who would replace Monahan, and you heard some players say, we'd like somebody with more of a playing background, somebody who knows what we do and how we've done it and has been part of it. Jason Gore's name immediately came to mind. I mean,
wow.
It used to be Joe Ogilvy's name was the one. He was the guy.
Yes.
A lot of guys. I think Rory would be a great commissioner. I don't think he wants to do that right now, but I think for the time being, Jay definitely has to build back some trust. I think he would be the first person to acknowledge that. But I know from talking to people on the policy board who make the biggest decisions they feel like there's a lot of support for Jay Monahan there. Now, again, there's a lot of rebuilding to be done, and I think I'm glad he's back. He sounds like he's doing well. Said he's going to be at Wyndham next week in Greensboro, then in Memphis, and get back on the road. So, I think he understands from now till the end of the year, trying to get this detailed agreement worked out. It won't be to everybody's satisfaction. Something like this is not going to check every box on every side, but I think it's a critical 3 or 4 months for him now.
One more question before I let you get on with your day. The Do you have any insight on what the players that jumped over to the LIV, what hoops they're going to have to jump through to get back to be reinstated on the PGA Tour?
No, I think that's one of the big talking points. I think obviously the guys who were offered money and stayed, they want to find a way to compensate them, whether it's equity in this new company or the Saudis bring in some of the money and saying, all right, we're going to give you this much and this much to John Rahm and to Rory and that. I don't know. I couldn't imagine how they're going to determine that, but I know they're working on it. And I think the other big part, is what happens to the Bryson DeChambeaus and the Dustin Johnsons and those guys. How do they get back? I think there will be a cost involved, whether financial or time or suspension or whatever, maybe a combination of both. I think that's going to be part of it. I think there's still a lot of hurt feelings by what some guys did and by what some players said. I would think the pathway back for Phil Mickelson is probably harder than it is for, say, a Harold Varner who said, look, I did it for the money. I'm 35 years old. I want to make my family stable forever. And made no bones about it. I've got friends, people, guys on tour all still love Dustin Johnson, So I don't know. I think it's been great at the majors this year because after the first one, you sort of forgot the live PGA Tour thing. It just became about the best players in the game again. And you realize sort of what's gone missing. Brooks Koepka wins the PGA Championship, so that adds a little live thing to it. But even he said, I don't know if it validates live, but it validates me. And, you miss having those guys when you get to those things and like, oh man, I forgot Cam Smith, we don't see him play that much over here.
And he's still pretty good. He's still
pretty darn good. Brooks Koepka's still pretty darn good. And there's a lot of good players. So, I think if they can frame it right, it will be great if they get it all put together workably. With the new schedule coming out so soon, and I've been told it's very, very similar to what had, I think maybe Memorial and Wells Fargo might move 1 week to be right up against the majors to try to get these blocks of they're going to be called signature events, not designated events.
Signature, yeah.
So they might work around there, but I got to believe, I thought live would go away pretty much immediately, but I got to believe if the tour schedule's pretty much in place for next year, live will probably keep playing in some form or fashion. Plus they guaranteed those guys the money. Will they scale it down? I don't know, but I'm anxious to hear the storyline that comes out with the tour schedule when it finally gets released.
If you want to, if you want to put a spin on it to the players that stayed, say, look, guys, you're up 30%. Purses are up drastically. Everybody's making more money. You should be tickled to death that live started. And why do you need compensated? Because you stayed, you're getting more money anyhow. And then they're doing all this other stuff to throw money here and throw money there at these guys to get them to stay, that got them to stay. I don't know that they really need to be compensated too much, but I know they're grumbling about it.
Yeah, and I think, talking about Monahan, and, he really took a beating at Canada when this thing came out, and he went to the players' meeting, and it was not the stars who were there. It was more the rank and file and everything. And, everybody looks out for themselves. I think, though, if he can tell them, and not just tell them, but show them, hey, we may have gone about this quietly and secretively, but you're making this much now. You stay with us. You're going to be making this much plus this much more. I would expect a lot of complaining would subsides, like pulling that pot off the oil there. Like, okay, wait a minute, you mean I'm going to get even richer? Okay, well, I can probably live with this. I don't like the way you did it, but I can live with it.
We've been talking with Ron Green Jr., senior writer for Global Golf Post. Ron, keep up the good work. Always enjoy reading your comments.
Well, thanks very much. Enjoyed it. It's a remember when it just used to be about pars and birdies and who's going to make the cut? Boy, those were the good old days.
Not anymore, buddy. You got to become a legal expert and a
Oh,
negotiator and all that stuff.
it is, yeah. It's one of these days. My political science degree may actually come into some sort of benefit.
There you go. Thanks a lot, Ron.
Thank you.